Hi, and welcome to the Biography podcast. This is your host, Dylan Smith.
Okay, so Emily, would you like to kick us off? Tell us a little about yourself.
Absolutely not. Just tell me what you want me to do.
So today on the show, I have my wife, who is, needless to say, a huge part of my life. And we're just going to talk a little bit about our life so far and how records played a small part in that. So
Just a tiny
part. So Emily and I met about 20 years ago. I don't know, 15 years ago. 2006, 2005, something like that. Right?
2006.
2006. That's about
Yeah, it's iffy. I would say 6.
Yeah. So let's say 2006. We met, and basically, you were doing the music for our church, and then I replaced you because you went off to college, and then when you came back, we met. Does that sound right? Okay.
That's about right.
That's about right. It's a rich story there.
There's some gray area.
There's some gray area.
Can't remember.
Things I remember, the things that she remembers.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we met doing that, and from then on, we played music together, and then we fell in love. But it took a while.
Are we going to talk about the one time I found you on the side of the road?
Oh, yeah. So this could be the time that we actually met.
Well,
do you want to tell the story?
No. So maybe you should start out with the story the first time you saw me.
Okay.
And then we'll move into...
Well, the notorious story is the first time I saw her, I walked in and she was singing at church. And I went and stood beside my friend. I said, man, who's that girl? And he said, oh, that's Emily. I'm going to marry her someday. And I was thinking, not if I can help it. And spoiler alert, he did not marry her. I did. And then, so the first time that we actually met, that you remember me, and I remember having somewhat of an interaction with you.
It was a very, very short interaction, but he was friends. This is weird and it probably had something to do with why I didn't really like you at first. He was friends with my dad, and they bonded over Pink Floyd.
That's right.
And anyways, so I was like, who is this guy that my dad's hanging out with that's a young guy?
And I had long hair
that
down to my
likes
waist.
Pink Floyd. I thought it was so strange.
Yeah.
So, and barely ever wore shoes, and if you did, it was rainbows, flip-flops, and anyway, so, but yeah, I was driving down the road, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's that guy that my dad knows on the side of the road, broken down in his punch buggy Beetle.
This is a 1974 Volkswagen Super Beetle. It was red.
The gas gauge did not work in it.
The gas gauge didn't work, and neither did the gas cap. And when you run around a curve, the gas would spill out. And so you never really knew how much gas was in there, so I broke down on occasion.
Yeah, so first time I remember kind of meeting him, but it was like, I mean, it was on the side of the highway, and I asked him if he was okay or needed help, and being the tough guy, showing off, he was like, I already called my mom. Walked to the gas station or something happened. It was broken down. I
said, baby, all I need is your digits.
No.
I didn't say that.
No, that didn't happen at all. But anyways, and then the next time
you were asking me a question about your guitar and how you always broke one of the strings.
Okay, now this is just getting dirty. So let's just stop.
So we're going to fast forward a good bit because this is not really relevant at all. So we were friends. We were friends for a couple of years, and then I professed my love to her, and she obviously felt the same way. And then we started to date, And then that happened on and off for a year.
Which was totally my fault.
That was totally your fault. And then after a year of that,
fear of commitment.
We broke up for like 4 months, and then she called me and told me that she had gone on a date with someone else, and it didn't go well, and she realized that she couldn't do any better than me.
That's not what happened.
Yeah, that's what happened.
No.
And then she professed her undying love for me, and then we got married later that year. So that was January. Wow. She bought her wedding dress in February. I proposed to her in May, and we
were married in October.
In October. So that's the story. So when we first got married, I was working a part-time job, making $1,000 a month, and we lived in an apartment that was $600 a month, and somehow we made it.
Now, we got really skinny, and
oh man, I was 140 pounds, which if you know me now, I am not 140 pounds. That's the skinniest I've ever been in my life. But we went to the Mexican restaurant and we split a meal. And ate free chips and salsa.
Loaded up on the chips and salsa.
I could get a meal for $7.40 and we could split it.
Oh, they hated us,
and we still had leftovers to take home because we filled up on chips and salsa. So that was the dream right there.
Yeah.
But we did leave tips. I did leave a tip,
did.
but a tip on $7 isn't that much.
Yeah.
But anyways, so anyways, whereabouts somewhere in there. Right before we got married, I cleaned out my bedroom, and she saw, well, what did you think when you saw all my records? I remember what you said verbatim, because it broke my heart.
Oh, gosh. Well, you just tell the story, because I don't remember at all.
You said, those are not going into my house. And I said, they're not staying at this house, and we didn't argue over it much. I brought them over to our apartment, which our apartment was small.
Yeah,
I think I explained.
Yeah, you did keep them.
I did keep them for a little while, and then we got so desperate and broke. And then at that time,
you didn't have a record player that worked.
No, I didn't. And I was like, well, I think these are worth some money. And I put them on Craigslist. So I made a long list of records that I had, and I put them on Craigslist and put prices beside each one. And people would call me and say, "Hey, I want this one, this one, this one, this one." And then I would meet them somewhere. And so, anyways, through that process, I sold all of them. And I maybe had like 20 or 30 left at the end that I just kind of moved around with. This my most important ones. My Led Zeppelins and Pink Floyds and stuff that I really liked. I even sold most of my Pink Floyd ones. But anyways, and so after that, we got to where we wanted to buy and sell things. And well, it's not that we wanted to, we had to, because I had no other source of income and I was broke and I was stubborn. And so we would go around on Craigslist. So on Craigslist, they have a free section, and on Saturdays, after people had yard sales, they would post, say, free yard sale leftovers. And we would come, load up the back of my truck with yard sale leftovers, and bring them back.
It was junk and it was a disaster.
Crap.
Stuff that people did not want to buy at yard sales.
Yeah. So imagine, So, and then we would gather enough stuff, and then we would have a huge yard sale, and then we made some good money. Like we made like $400 or $500 each time we did it, which is not a lot, but so anyways, but it was enough to pay a few bills, and so I sold off all my guitars. I had 22 guitars when we got married, and I sold down to like 4. So when we were buying and selling stuff, there's just one story that I just have to tell.
No. It's the ping pong?
Yes, I would buy and or sell anything, and we were at this apartment complex.
Yeah, it was pitiful.
And sometimes people would leave awesome stuff by the dumpster. The only problem is...
we got a really great TV that lasted for like 4 years.
No.
Yes.
We got a really nice TV that was nice and big and huge and 1,000 pounds. And I got it and I put it in the back of my truck, and every fiber of my being to get that son of a gun up those 3 flights of stairs, put it down, plugged it in, It did not work.
Well, no, but that was a different one.
It was a different one.
We did get
yes,
one.
Yes, we did end up getting one. So it didn't work. And I was like, what the crap? It was not a flat screen by any means. It was a big freaking TV, big cube. And so I was literally debating on whether I should throw it out the window because I was not carrying it back down. So the next day I carried it back down. And maybe a couple weeks later, I found another one. I tried it again, and that one worked.
But smarter, wiser. I
plugged it in downstairs.
Found an outlet outside in the first floor.
This one particular night, and if you know me, you know that from time to time I do get spells of diarrhea. It happens. And I got this real bad case of the squirts, and we were coming in. I mean, Emily was driving because I couldn't even drive. I was so toe up. I don't know what we had to eat. I don't know what it was, but I was
it's gotten
hurting.
Better. Yeah,
I was hurting. Anyways, we drive into the apartment complex, and there at the gate is the dumpsters, and there's this beautiful state-of-the-art ping pong table, and this thing is on wheels. It's got all the paddles. It's got all the balls. It's got everything. It is nice. It's got the net. It's got the instruction manual.
Somebody was moving out.
It looked beautiful. And I said, I don't care how sick I am. I'm getting this thing
We
up.
didn't even have room for it.
How in the world I was going to get it up 3 flights of stairs? To this day, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. But I was like, let's get it. I can sell this thing at least for $100, at least. And so I was like, I got an idea. I'm going to sit in the back of the truck, and you're going to drive slowly. And I'm gonna hold this ping pong table.
And I drove slow.
Oh, she drove super slow. But I said, I'm gonna hold this ping pong table, and then we're gonna just pull it along ever so slowly. And I'm sitting in the back, about to just soil myself, and I'm just sick as complete white as a sheet. I'm holding this ping pong table, and she's driving slow, and she goes over a speed bump. And as soon as that, the little tiny wheels on that thing buckled at the speed bump, and within seconds, it turned from a nice, beautiful, state-of-the-art ping pong table into just a pile of garbage. And I was like, I am going to leave this heap here. I cannot. But I was like, I felt too bad about it, so I loaded it up in the back of the truck, took it back to the dumpster, threw it back next to the dumpster, and I was sick about. I'm still sick about it today. Actually, I'm not. It's a great story. But anyways, so that was before we had kids. That was just a story I could not bear to not tell. Anyway, so and then so we did that for a few years, and then I guess I had gotten a job. I was selling cars for a while, and anyways, I got a different job after that, and I was at this place, and I thought it was a pretty secure job. And one day I saw I was kind of getting back into records. Like I bought a little turntable. It was like a little Crosley type turntable. It wasn't a Crosley, but it was something similar.
This is like 2 years in our marriage.
Yeah, maybe 2 years, yeah. And I really started kind of getting into records again and wanting some, and was looking on Craigslist one day, and this guy and I mentioned this in my first episode of Vinyl Biography podcast, so if you want to go back and listen to it, I'll tell you the exhaustive story. But basically, this guy had shut down a record store. He had a record store in like Chicago or something, and when he closed down, he moved to Charlotte. He put everything in his spare bedroom and just shut the door, and it has been sitting there since the late 80s. I went over there. Long story short, I bought all the records. There were 7,000 records I got for $200. And I remember calling Emily and saying, "Is this okay?" And you said,
"Well," and it was
the last $200 we had. That's all the money we had. And she said, "Do you think you can turn a profit on it?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't know how I could."
I just remember him saying, "Just trust me. I know this is worth way more than $200, and I know that I can get the $200 back right away."
Yeah.
So I was like, "All right, let's do it."
So we
got some rice and beans in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Last us a few days.
Noodles, man. So I guess it was I got everything back. We went and bought some IKEA shelves. I was on the third floor. We were on the third floor apartment, and I had to carry all them rascals up. Anyway, so then I was like, so right after that, maybe like the next week, my employer was doing something that I felt was unethical. And I confronted him about it, thinking that he would understand and we could still be friends and stuff. And he fired me. And what's crazy about that day is at the beginning of the day, I had to drop my car off to get the oil changed, and my boss gave me a ride to work.
That was rough.
And then when we got to work, I
we only had one car.
We only had one car, yeah. And when I got to work, I confronted him. He fired me, and then I went to my office to call Emily. And when I got out, he had left, and
and everybody was gone.
Yeah, everybody was gone. So I was stuck at a place I no longer worked. Our only car was at the mechanic, which was about 5 or 6 miles away. And Emily was stuck at home.
Thank God it was only 5 or 6 miles away.
Yeah. So
and this was
called
before
Emily.
Uber.
And not to I couldn't have afforded Uber anyways. But
that's true.
So I started walking to the mechanic place, and I remember just that. Talk about a walk of shame. I mean, I just was so upset and regretted. I didn't regret what I'd done because I knew it was the right thing, but I was thinking, what in the world am I going to do? I'm stuck. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. I just, have this wife that I keep disappointing because I can't make enough freaking money. And I just felt like a failure. And, I remembered back to when I was a kid and I had started buying and selling things. And I said, I can do this. I can buy and sell some things. And by the time I got to the mechanic, I made up my mind that I had these 7,000 records, and I was going to figure out how to turn them into some cash. So got home,
opened an eBay account,
start putting them on eBay. Well, what I didn't know is that they were all really rare. And this guy had this record store, so everything was either autographed, sealed, or promotional copies, and they were all original. And I ended up, that sustained us for a couple, maybe 2 or 3 years. And so I had that as kind of like a to fall back on, and then I was always looking for collections and records.
Yeah, and it taught you a lot about albums and records that you had never even experienced or heard of, and I mean it was really cool.
Probably 80% of what I have now, I would have not have known what it was then. Because I knew what the regular old classic rock stuff was, but I didn't know. And I remember pulling out a record. It was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I was like, "Who the heck is this guy?" And I put it on, and I was like, blown away by it. I loved it, and I was like, "There's so much music out here that I don't even know what it is." And so I started getting into it and researching, and we would go up to the mountains to find collections all the time. We'd go up and stay with family up in Asheville and go to yard sales and flea markets and stuff and find records, and it was going pretty well. And so for a couple years I did that. Then I guess for a year or so I did that, and then Emily was pregnant. She ended up being pregnant.
Which was a total surprise because we had struggled for a few years to get pregnant, and she had gotten pregnant, and at that time, it was really rough. Financially,
I had the pipeline had dried up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the car dealership that I had worked at before and got a job there, and I did really well selling cars. I didn't have a problem doing it. I just hated it, and so it was it wasn't a stable job, but it was more stable than nothing. And so I was there for a few months. I think I was there for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I would go out. It was February's the slowest month in selling cars because nobody buys cars in February. It's cold. I don't know. But and I would go out in February, and I'd go out during my lunch break and go try to find records and sell them and all that stuff. And it was just, it was something that I always wanted to do in the back of my head, but I just didn't have the resources. I didn't think I did to really do it. And I'd gone into the sales tower where my boss worked one night. It was late. I was working on a deal. I don't know if you remember this. Mm-hmm. These two people came in right at closing, and this man and this woman, and they wanted to both buy cars.
Yeah.
So I sold 2 cars that night. But anyways,
you were home so late.
Well, no, I was home so late, but you were waiting on me in our only car, waiting to pick me up.
Oh,
you had gotten there at 9 p.m. I didn't get out till 1:30.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy! I totally forgot about that.
And my sales manager was in that we call it the sales tower, but at his desk, and I remember going in there And I was going to say, listen, we can just cut these people loose. I don't give a crap. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he was talking to his daughter on the phone, and he said, no, I'm not going to make you home again tonight, honey. Mama's gonna tuck you in, and I know I haven't seen you in a week. I know, I'm sorry, and all this stuff about. And basically, what I was hearing was his daughter's at home. She hasn't seen him in a week. He's at work all day, every day, and that really stuck with me. And a couple days later. Yeah. He came to me. He said, "Dylan, you're checked out. Why aren't you selling?" And I said, "Listen, I don't think this is the right thing for me." He's like, "No, you were born for this. You're so good at this." I mean, I had made top salesman in Southeast Toyota. I was in the top 3 for a while.
Yeah.
And I said, "Look, I heard the phone call you had with your daughter the other day, and I just don't want to be that kind of person. I mean, it's no offense to you." He said, "We have the best lifestyle, and our house is huge, and we got all these, cars and jet skis or whatever." I mean, telling me how great his house was. Yeah. And I said, "You know what? I bet you your daughter would give anything up for
absolutely, yeah,
you to be there." And I took my shirt off. I had a shirt underneath. I took my shirt off and I handed it to him. I said, "I'm done."
Yeah.
I hadn't talked to him or anything.
Like,
right. And so I called her and I said, "Trust me, I got it."
Well, which plays a lot into both of us. He's a Enneagram 7. I'm an Enneagram 6 with a 7 wing, and we're both very much we're ready for the next thing always. Yeah. Like, what's next? All right, let's do. Yeah.
Well, see, like I'm always looking for the next thing, and I'm a dreamer, and she pushes it. Like, she pushes me. Yeah. And so like that. Well, and she's a dreamer too.
Well, yes, but a 6. Their sin or whatever it's called,
downfall.
Their pitfall is fear. But I think the moment that I got married, I was like, "Oh, this is my bravery. He's my bravery." So
yeah. And the 7's downfall is gluttony. It's so funny because the 7's downfall is the worst. It's gluttony, and then their strength is sobriety, which means their strength is the ability to overcome their downfall,
which is really funny.
Ridiculous.
Which I think that plays into collecting.
Right, that's why I don't drink alcohol, folks.
Yeah,
because I'm scared of it.
Well, and there's a line.
Short story. So my great grandfather on my dad's side was a drunk. And he was driving all of his in-laws' family and all of his family to a job site. So there was I think 18 or 19 people on this truck. It was all the men from his wife's side of the family and all the men from his side of the family. He was driving the truck, and he was drunk. Somehow, I don't know if they were trying to outrun the train or they were cutting it close, but he was drunk, and he went across the railroad tracks and didn't make it. And the train killed everybody on the truck except for him.
Yeah.
And so that wiped out both sides of the family, and the world would be a totally different place if that hadn't happened. So that's just one of the reasons. I mean, I got alcoholism on both sides of the family to some extent. So, and also I have an addictive personality. So, anyways,
sobriety.
I've never. Because of that, I've never drank a drop.
You've made your collection into a business.
Right.
Keep it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm the best 7 I could be. Anyways, no, I'm joking. Yeah. Anyway, so if you don't know anything about Enneagram, you might be a little lost. But Enneagram,
look it up. It's so good.
Really interesting. But it's a personality test thing. That's
help you get to your best self, and it really
if you're married,
helps.
Helps you get to know your wife or husband. So. Anyways, I left the car dealership, and from there started selling records again. So I did it all throughout I did it on eBay, I guess. And I started Instagram right when Instagram came out, pretty much.
Yeah. Which Instagram came out a week after we got married.
Yeah.
So funny.
And so our account, the Instagram name was Day Smith Records, DAE, Dylan and Emily Smith
Very
Records.
Lame and hilarious.
So dumb. But that was it. And so we, if some of you guys might remember that, most of you probably don't. But it was Day Smith Records. And then we just started thinking about names for our baby that was coming.
Yeah. And it was really important to us. Our last name's Smith, so everybody, I mean, literally every name we came up with, we were like, yep, we know somebody with that name.
Emmett Smith.
Or
He's
Emmett
a football
Smith.
player.
Yeah, or,
whatever.
I mean, anything we came up with, it was something. And so we really, for our kids, we wanted to be very creative and have names that meant something. For our dogs before we had kids. They were our kids before kids, but
which we still have.
We wanted to name our dogs musical names. And with our kids, we wanted to give them very unique names. If they ever became musicians, then
yeah.
The name wasn't already there. Should we talk about our dogs?
Very briefly. So we have brothers and sisters. They're two dogs, a boy and a girl, and the boy's name is Zeppelin.
Obviously. And
I always joked growing up that if I ever had a son, I would name him Arrow, so his name would be Aerosmith.
Yes.
So we named the girl dog Era because it was more feminine than Arrow.
Yeah.
But Era's not a real name. It's Aera. So her name's Aerosmith. That was the idea.
It was funny to us.
Funny,
and
but no one gets it but us, really.
Yeah. And we go to the vet, and they call her out. And every time, they're like, Area?
Area? Is there an area?
Oh, my gosh.
Do you know how to read?
Well, their defense,
and then Louis,
spelled really ridiculous.
Our golden retriever that we kind of still have.
Yeah,
he's living at my parents' farm because he gets to sow his wild oats.
Yeah.
But his name's Louis after Louis Armstrong / Louis was also the name of Bradley Noel's dog from Sublime. His name was Louis.
True.
So that's kind of the...
Which was a Dalmatian, right?
Which was a Dalmatian, yeah.
And we both had Dalmatians growing up.
Yes.
So one day...
We might have another one.
One day.
Anyway, so that's our dog's name. So Emily had come up one day with the name Noble for our first son. And I love that name so much. As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's it. And then I said, you know what? I'm not thrilled about Day Smith. And we were starting to build up a little bit of a following. And I said, I really want something, because people were like, what is this word?
Yeah.
What is Day Smith?
Yeah. What do you...
And so I said, I want something
weird.
more legible,
Yeah.
And so I said, why don't, when we have Noble, I changed the name of the business to Noble Records. So on the day he was born, we rebranded, and we were Noble Records from then on out. So and so that's coming up on 6 years.
Yeah.
So then after that, we I did records part time for a while, on and off, and I had gotten a really good job as a engineer or whatever at a machine shop, and I was lucky to get the job. I had to take a long series of tests to get it, but I did get it, and I was thrilled to get it. It was a great job, great benefits, good money, but I was working like 80 hours a week with night shifts and all this stuff, and so that was horrible. But I worked there for 2 years. During that 2 years, I was not very active selling records. A little here and a little there for a little extra cash, but not much. And at the end, basically, when we had Cannon, our second son, which Cannon is my grandparents.
Yeah,
my mom's maiden name's Cannon. My grandparents on that side, their last name's Cannon. So we named him Cannon. And when we had him, so this business had... was it paternity leave for fathers that they could take off up to 4 months.
So great.
And so I was like, during this 4 months, I'm going to hustle it out and I'm going to sell some records.
Well, and 2 months of it was paid.
Yeah, 2 months of it was paid, and then if you took any longer than that, it was on you. Yeah. So I rustled up some records and just, wore myself out trying to make enough money, but I did it. And then 4 months later, I had to return back to work.
Oh, man.
And the minute I stepped...
cried and cried and cried.
I did, too.
I cried before he even walked out the door.
I wanted to cry. It was horrible.
I was like, this has been the best 4 months. And then...
I know. The moment I walked back in there, I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. And we were there a few more months, a couple more months. I don't know how long it was. And I got an opportunity to quit. And it was the most satisfying quitting experience I've ever had, too. My boss had pulled me in to yell at me about something, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. And he's like, no, I was... And I'm like, it was the best, man. Anyways, so I left there, and then we just, prayed that we would figure something out, because I knew that at that point, our oldest son, Noble, had been diagnosed with autism, so I knew... the inconsistency of my schedule was messing his therapy up. He couldn't develop as well as he could have because
he worked night shifts, and the schedule it was swing shifts. So explain.
So one week you'd work 4 nights, 7 to 7. And then the next week you'd work 4 days, 7 to 7. And then you had overtime in between that. So you never adjusted to any sort of schedule. And he thrives on a schedule. Yeah. So I talked to my, it's a long story, but I talked to his neurologist, and she said, you really need to have a consistent schedule. Yeah. And so I knew it was the right thing to do, and I quit, and we did what we could.
Yeah, the nights that he would work night shift, Noble would not sleep at all. And then I have a baby to take care of too, and so I can't sleep during the day. And he's been up all night, and so
I would get home and Noble would had just gone to bed at 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah,
and then you would be dying, exhausted, and then I would have to. I mean, it was it was crazy. Neither of us were getting any sleep.
It was like when Dad's not here, he would cry all night, and
anyways,
just couldn't sleep.
Yeah, it was bad. Anyway, so then after that, I really went full force. Well, I mean, during that time, I didn't know what I was going to do, and so I sold my collection completely down to nothing. I didn't have any personal records of my own. I maybe had 100 left over, and I'd had 2,000 or 3,000. I had 100 left over because I sold everything. And then during that time, Emily got a job at a coffee shop. She was doing really well there, and they were like, why don't you come over and do a pop-up? And then that's when I did my first pop-up. Yeah. And in that,
rewind.
Okay.
I was thinking the other day, I saw a picture on Facebook. It was like a memory of our good friends Chris and Morgan.
Oh yeah,
that was your first pop-up. So technically, I mean, it was so many years between, but the Charlotte Initiative.
Yeah, there's this thing.
What it's called?
I think that's what it's called. It was a impromptu thing. Somebody just asked me.
That went really well.
Yeah, that was
a year really before fun. That. Yeah.
And I brought out guitars and amps and turntables and receivers and records, and it was crazy. I sold a ton of stuff, and that was great. And then so her coffee shop was like, why don't you guys, why don't you come set up and do a pop-up? And my goal at that point was to sell everything I had and kind of get out of it and figure something else out. Because that was my thing. I was like, records have not ever made me enough money to make a living. It's always just been kind of fun with some side money, and we've always struggled when I did records.
But too, it was mostly your second job.
Right.
So
I was like, I'm selling all my records, just getting enough money to launch me into the next thing. And I was dreaming about the next thing and all that stuff. And that pop-up went so well. And the next week, I bought a really good collection. And I was like, maybe I can do this for a while. And so she was doing really good at the coffee shop, and I was kind of building up momentum and buying and selling collections. And I really got into it and just hit a string of really good collections. And it enabled me to continue to schedule pop-ups. I was doing 2 a month, which is about what I do now. So anyways, that's how we kind of got to where we are now. So now I have a full-time job doing music and graphic design and videos. And
it's a consistent schedule. And
so that's what I do now. And then on the weekends, I buy and sell records, and at night. And I work at night. We made
it a whole family adventure, really.
Yeah, we get to drive around and find records. Our
kids love looking through them. And Noble, man, He's probably
He's a
going to be a
collector.
7. He's a collector. Yeah.
He loves collecting CDs and DVDs
He's
and
super
records.
into DVDs. He would really be super into records if we let him, but he kind of
he doesn't understand how delicate they can be. Yeah. So we're getting there with him. You know, he's got some records of his own that are beat up. And so so anyways, so that's kind of the story. I was going to talk about it earlier, and I think I had missed a step. But when I was a kid, when I was talking about when I walked from getting fired to the mechanic, you know, when I was a kid, I remember back to when I was in second grade. We had a school store. Yeah. And they had pens and pencils and paper and notepads and rulers and erasers and all this, you know, stuff. And the proceeds went to back to the school. And I went one day to Costco or Sam's Club or something with my mom, and I realized how cheap the pens were when you bought them in bulk. And I was like, man, this is way cheaper. Like, I could open up a school store of my own and make some money. So I went to the school store, and I copied down on a notebook pad how much everything was. And I thought, can I lower all the prices by 5 cents and sell and undercut them pretty much? And so that's what I did. I went into Costco or Sam's Club or whatever, and I bought all the stuff, same stuff, and I priced it like 5 cents cheaper on everything. And so everyone would come into my classroom and buy out of my desk, and I had this business going in second grade. And the principal called and told my dad he needed to come down to the principal's office. And I remember she said she was going to whoop me. Because back then, I guess they still did it. Yeah. They give you spankings. And I remember hearing my dad say, if you whip him, I'm whipping you, over the phone. And he came down there, and he was mad as he could be. And he said, you know, the school is to prepare people for life, and he's already starting to make a living, and you're trying to discourage him. And I remember him telling me, you know, you can do anything you want to. You can sell anything you want to. And he always poured that into me, like, you don't have to, you know,
do what society says.
Yeah, you don't have to do everything that go have a 9-to-5 job. You can work on your own. You can be your own boss. And so that's something he always poured into me. And like when I went to these different jobs, that is for some people. Some people they thrive
Absolutely.
on that, and they need that, and that's great. And if everyone just did what I did, society would totally
it would crumble.
It would be an anarchy. It wouldn't be good. Yeah. But for me, this is what I was kind of born to do, I think. And so when I've gone to these jobs and you know, like the car dealership, and they said, you know, you were born to sell cars, and this is you, and you're not going to be able to succeed without this. And I thought back, you know, actually that's not me, and I know what is me, and this ain't it. So that's been kind of what's pushed me forward to sell records and to do my own thing, is to kind of get all those voices out of my head that you have to live this way. You have to do life just like society tells you have to, and kind of do what's right for our family. Like when we have a child with special needs, it's important that I have a flexible schedule. It's important that I'm home more. And it's important, I mean, we have to live life just in a different way than most people do. And I think that going all the way back to when I was a kid, I was being prepared for this, having the lifestyle and being able to be a little bit more flexible in what I do, so it can more help our lifestyle. Just having a kid with autism, so you've been a very good blessing. So go ahead.
I think we were going to ask a couple questions about music.
Did you have some questions for me, or do you want to go from the Instagram questions?
Well, so I don't know. What's your first question you usually ask your guests?
So I usually ask, do you not listen to my podcast, Emily?
No. We're going to do this.
I listen to all your podcasts.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm joking. So the first
I do listen to them. I usually get distracted by kids.
So, no, the first question is always, what was the first album that you bought with your own money?
Yeah, and I said, you don't want to know that, 'cause I didn't.
Well, mine was Nelly.
Really?
Mine was Nellyville.
Oh.
I bought the CD.
And you're going to say Nelly.
No, not Nelly Furtado.
I don't know anything. Okay.
Nelly, the cheek Band-Aid Nelly.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
I
Hot in her.
Yeah.
Nelly.
Okay, whoa. Okay.
Whoa.
We got to keep this clean.
Bricks now.
So, yeah.
So your first album, you bought a CD.
I know before that I know I bought cassettes.
Okay, well,
but I don't even remember. So I don't even remember.
So the first
those.
one
That's
you remember buying with your own money.
And I was just kind of all over the place. The first CD, because here's the thing. I'm gonna give away my age a little bit. High school, it became, went from the dark ages to the internet age. So AIM came out in 9th grade, and then, rushed home to watch TRL every day at 4:00. It was like the highlight of my high school. NSYNC. NSYNC was my first CD.
All right.
And I'm not sure. I want to say it wasn't Bye Bye Bye. I want to say maybe it was. Maybe I don't know what the title of that album
CD was. They were all
it Space Cowboy?
No, they were all on those like the puppets.
I don't know.
They had the puppets. It was oh my gosh.
What's the name of that album? That was the first album. CD, I should say.
So that was No Strings Attached.
Thank you. Yes. No Strings Attached.
In the year of 2000.
Woo! Anyways, so
that's
I was an NSYNC girl all the way.
No Backstreet. Get that crap out of here.
This is another Enneagram 6. I was so loyal to NSYNC. No Backstreet Boys.
No, I can't.
No. But anyways, I secretly really did love the Backstreet Boys, but I would have never uttered that word.
Here's a good one. Here's a good one that someone just submitted on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
What is one musician or band that you love but your wife cannot stand? You tell me, because here's the thing. I know a lot of bands that I listen to that she wouldn't like, so I don't play them in front of her because she's not gonna like them.
I'm not.
I know her taste. I know what she likes.
I don't even want to answer.
I know what you're gonna answer
because people are gonna be all judgy about me.
No, they're not. She doesn't like Grateful Dead.
I don't like Grateful Dead. The same reason your mom doesn't like Grateful Dead.
Get out of here. The reason is because of the skull. She doesn't like skulls.
There's some other reasons that I'm not going to get into.
No, there's not.
I can name. You're going to cut it out though.
Well, just tell me. I'll be the judge of that.
Something about the devil.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't like the Friend of the Devil song?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, that's understandable.
There you go.
Tunes from the Man Cave. Chris says, for Emily, a question for Emily, why did you steal Dylan from me? You're better looking than me. It's an unfair advantage.
What's an unfair advantage?
That you're better looking than him.
I did know this question before you said it, but...
See, the thing is that
I don't even know what to say to that.
You saw me first.
Yeah.
So, if he had no chance.
Yeah.
Also... Yeah. Anyways,
there's some things we could say, but
there's some things we can't say. Let's just say Chris and I
have a joke.
We could never work.
Anyways, okay.
Anyways, so
trailing off.
Does your wife choose to listen to vinyl on her own? And the fact is that used to you did.
I would.
But see, like, we have a whole nother part of the house that's for records that the kids don't go into. That is only
for records, just because at this stage in our lives the kids,
they get into things.
They will destroy the record player.
Or the records.
And the records, for sure.
So, we don't have a turntable in the living room. If we did, she would.
It's padlocked. They cannot get in there now.
What's your wife's?
I would, yes. Yeah. I would if we had one in our living room. We just can't right now. But, yes.
What's your wife's favorite band? We talked about this a little bit, and I can't remember.
See, and this is just...
So when we're going to use this to talk about... We'll talk about when we first started dating, what we listened to, and what she likes.
Yes.
We listen to Damien Rice.
Ray LaMontagne.
Coldplay.
Yeah.
Coldplay. So all that stuff, we loved that.
I love folk music. I love ambient, just like very mellow.
Sleeping at Last, girl.
Anything.
And so, favorite concerts.
Like melancholy.
The only concert that we really liked that we went to together was Ray LaMontagne.
Yeah.
And that was in 2007-ish.
Yeah. And we almost went to the Wild Sweet Orange. And I don't know.
No one knows who that is.
Oh, well.
Wild Sweet Orange was this band, and they were incredible. I can't remember where they're from. I think Alabama, maybe.
Very sick.
Yeah.
Because we had watched I Am Legend.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. Whew. 6 years of working at Caribou Coffee, never called in sick one time. And we watched that movie, and I was so tense. I was just ready for a jump scene.
Yeah.
That never really happened, I don't think.
Anyways, spoiler alert.
I grew up so much.
She's a sensitive lad.
Oh, can't watch
lad,
movies.
Lady. Okay.
Worst headache.
Somebody said, what's the most difficult part of selling records and how do you overcome it? The most difficult part of selling records, I guess, is finding records, but also, selling records that you really want to keep. But the only way I overcome the problems, which is finding records and keeping records that, is the need for money. That's how I overcome it. You can't keep everything, and there's assurance that you're gonna find things again.
And you've seen so much at this point that I'll just see it again.
Yeah.
So.
And then this is one somebody asked today. What's one album that you regret passing on when you had the chance to buy it? When I was 13, I'll never forget this. I was telling somebody the story earlier this week. When I was 13-ish, I was at Goodwill on Sardis Road. And I was in there with my mom, and I had, a few dollars in my pocket. And there was every album that I wanted at the time. So there was a couple Led Zeppelin albums I didn't have. There were some Beatles albums I didn't have. All this stuff. And I remember picking up this album that had a banana on the cover of it. And I was like, this looks really interesting, but I don't want it right now. And I remember it was an unpeeled Velvet Underground and Nico, and I didn't get it. And it was $1. It was or 50 cents or something. It was at Goodwill, and I didn't know what it was, so I didn't get it. So that's the one I would probably regret.
You had kind of talked about this. What are a few albums that make you think about our life, me and you specifically, and then what were the first albums that you played for each of our boys after they were home? Because you did that, and then any albums that make you think of our kids.
So
each one specifically.
The one I said for you was the Cold War Kids. Mine is yours.
Yeah.
That album is just so good, and I don't think that's even one of their more notable albums that people really like of theirs. But I discovered it when I was landscaping. I landscaped for a while for extra money for a couple years, and that was in our early marriage. And just the lyrics were so good. I mean, it's just so good. Anyways, that one, and also one that I didn't mention is Lumineers, their first record. Yeah. We listened to that all the time when we first got married. For Noble, the first record I played for him is Led Zeppelin 3. But the album that when I see it, it reminds me of him is King Crimson, Court of the Crimson King, because he's got that big mouth open, and every time Noble sees it, he sticks his finger and counts all the teeth and everything. So, anyways, so Cannon, the first album I played for him was Bob Dylan, The Times They Are Changing.
Oh, so good.
And I do think about that just about every time I play that album.
Yeah.
What's an artist that your wife exposed you to that you have come to love?
Ooh. Oh no.
So when we first started dating, I'd never listened to Coldplay. So I really liked Coldplay. I'd not really ever listened to John Mayer, and you let me hear John Mayer Trio for the first time.
Yes.
And I really love that.
Yeah.
And then I don't even know if I've exposed you to anything that you've come to love, but
that's not true. Anyways, there was an album, man. Oh man, I cannot think. It was a husband and wife. They lived in their van, traveled with
Shovels
their
and
dog.
Rope.
Yes,
Shovels and Rope.
Oh man, love Shovels and Rope.
Yeah, that was good. And one band or musician that we'll talk briefly about is She Loves Pink. She loves Pink, and I'm on board with it. I'm here for that.
Spend a day with somebody, just have lunch with them or something.
Yeah, and also Kelly Clarkson's great.
Well, Kelly Clarkson, I love singing her songs. I loved watching her whole story. That's the only American Idol season I ever watched, and I loved her rags to riches story. But
Pink is like the kind of person that
is the opposite of who I am.
I wouldn't say that.
That's true.
I would say that if you were in your full bravery,
I'd be rebellious.
I don't think that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. She's like who I am in my inner self. Mm-hmm. Like this, I am woman. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But kind of.
So someone said, do you play any instruments? And so Emily and I both play guitar, piano, bass. I play a little banjo, harmonica, like some hand percussion stuff.
He is incredible at the djembe.
Oh yeah, djembe. If you don't know that, no.
Drum circle.
That's a complete useless thing.
But he's great at it. And harmonica.
Well,
I think harmonica might have been what wooed me a little bit.
Wow. It was not my dashing good looks or my taste.
A little bit.
And styles.
The blue eyes. And,
when I we'll just talk about this for a second. So we were talking on the phone, and we would talk all night on the phone.
Yeah.
But I still didn't know if she liked me, but obviously she did. But I had doubts. And she just said, I don't think I could ever date anyone that had long hair. And I had hair down to my freaking waist. So she said...
I think I said dreadlocks. Didn't I say dreadlocks?
I don't know. But at that point, and so the next morning I went out and I was playing basketball. I think you did say dreadlocks, actually. But if we're getting technical about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe she means just people with long hair.
No, I said...
You said...
Teamwork. Okay.
You said... I couldn't date anyone who had dreadlocks.
You should get dreadlocks.
And I was like, that little...
Gosh, I was terrible, man.
And I said, you love me. And I didn't say this, but in my head I said, she loves me.
But here's the thing. I was talking about... I was talking about how cool I thought dreadlocks were. But I just... was talking about that I wouldn't date anyone.
The way I said, you know what?
It was rough.
I'm going to lay it on the line. I'm tired of this screwing around and not knowing what's what, and if she likes me or whatever. And so I'm just gonna.
Have you told this part of the story?
I don't think I've ever told this part of the story.
Okay, well,
I'm gonna lay it on the line. And so that next day, I was out playing basketball, and it was the middle of summertime, and I was hot and sweaty, and I had this freaking ponytail. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to lose hair, and I'm going to look just like my dad, because my dad's completely bald. And you know what? I'm just going to get ahead of this thing, and I need to look presentable. I want to be a man that looks good for my woman, but she wasn't attracted to the long hair on men. And so I went straight to a friend of ours' mom was a hairstylist, and she cut my ponytail off, and it was 17 inches.
Yeah, so you got to donate it.
So donated it to Locks of Love, and then I went straight to Emily's house and knocked on the door, and she came to the door. It was a moment of truth, because I knew when she saw me with my haircut, she was going to have and make a decision.
Yeah.
And so I put the ball in your court, and you came to the door. And she opened the door and looked at me and slammed the door in my face, and I was like,
I remember saying, oh crap,
that did not go well.
I've got to make a decision. This guy's serious, man. He really, really likes
me. She opened the door back, and she had been crying a little bit, and so
I felt like, oh my gosh, if I don't date this guy,
he did this for nothing.
Then I ruined his life.
Was pity.
No.
Our whole marriage is based on pity. No. I'm joking.
But I had pushed the thought away so much. Yeah. Because I had this little pride thing. Big pride thing, I would say.
Yeah.
He was 2 years younger than me, and I was ruthless in high school. a guy 1 year younger than me asked me to prom, and I literally laughed in his face, and I was like, "You're younger than me." Mm-hmm. And
well, good thing we're in high school
has
anymore.
A great sense of humor because
yes. Now I'm 2 years younger,
but
still more man than you can handle.
True.
Anyways,
so
this is a great question, and it's just pretty much for me. But so people ask me this all the time, and since this is a Q&A, I'll answer it. So somebody said, how do you know when to buy lots? How do you make a profit? When doing trades, how do you know how much to pay? Do you look everything up on Discogs? That seems like it would take forever.
Yeah, no.
What pitfalls have you navigated? What's your advice? So this was a friend of mine who wants to start a pop-up. And so, first of all, where do you find stuff? How do you find them? It's a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago when I did one with Matt Sands, but it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of legwork. You know, I'm getting collections now from relationships I made 5 years ago, 10 years ago, of people that I've known for 5 or 10 years that trust me enough to let me come over and buy their collections. I bought records from a guy today that I've known him for 10 years, you know. And so that's just the way it happens a lot of times. And, you know, I go to great lengths to advertise that I buy records. When I do buy records, I pay people fair prices so they will recommend me to their friends. If their friends in the future, you know, I bought one of the best record collections I've ever bought in my life was last year. And the people found out about me from a collection that I had bought from their friends years previously, and they'd given them my number. So it's not just hard work. And I said this in the last time people asked me that. It's not just hard work now. It's hard work 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's hard work 10 years ago. You can't just see, you know, someone who's done it for a long time and say, I want that right now. It takes time.
And it's just building relationships too that continue to, I mean, like Tunes from the Man Cave.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about pop-ups is that I had my love for records, and before I did pop-ups, it was just online, and there was no community aspect to it at all. It was just money and records, and that was it. My motivation was to buy records so I could sell records and make money and maybe get a few free records here and there. Now, the whole community aspect has changed everything for me, and I love getting to know people, and it's just, it's huge. So do I look everything up on Discogs? No. Yeah. I never look, I won't say never. I rarely look anything up on Discogs. And I don't say that in a prideful way. It's just I've sold so many copies of Fleetwood Mac Rumors that I know what it sells for.
Yeah.
I've sold so many copies of Led Zeppelin 4, I know which pressings sell for what. And it's not that I'm a genius or anything like that. It's just that I've done it for so long. I know what market value is. I don't need to. When there's some rare jazz records or psych records or something that I don't know a whole lot about, I'll whip out Discogs and see. But Discogs can be deceitful because someone could have sold. Let's say you have a copy of a really rare jazz record. Someone could have just sold the cover for $15. Yeah. The record wasn't inside, or the record was in horrible shape. And then someone sell a mint sealed copy for $700. So your median is $350. So if you look on there and you see, this is worth $350, well, it might be worth $600 or it might be worth $500. Yeah. You can't just go off that. And so I use a lot of different resources to determine the value of something that's a little bit more rare. There's a website called popsych.com that I use, and that gives you auctions from the past 10 years that you can look at. And I think even longer than that. But anyways, there's a lot of different things. But the main thing is if I had to look up every single record before I priced it, I sell like 1,000, 1,500 records a month. Yeah, that would be all my time. I couldn't do that. So, used to, not everybody had Discogs in their pocket, and you had to really know what you were doing. Yeah. Now you don't really have to know what you're doing. You whip out Discogs, but you're going to do better if you study and you know the market value. And the longer you work at it, the less you're going to have to look it up. In the early days, I didn't look anything up. I just put everything on eBay for 99-cent auction, and then it went for whatever it went for. Yeah. So it didn't matter to me what it was worth. It would go for what I thought it was worth anyways. But the last question I got was, what would your teenage self have thought of your job now? Would you have been proud of the friendships that you've made through something that you created and care so much about? Yes. If my teenage self saw what I do now, I would be like, is that a job? Is that real? can that really happen? I would be blown away.
Yeah.
So I never thought, like when I was a teenager, I struggled for years on what I was going to do for a living, and this was never an option.
Yeah.
I never thought that was possible. So, Emily, what was your first memory with vinyl?
I don't know if I can remember exactly my first memory with vinyl, but my granddaddy, he had this den that at night he would settle in. He would brush his teeth. He had this whole brushing his teeth routine, and then he would sit in the den, and he'd have one lamp on. So it was very, just, neat, like just this one lamp, and he would sit by it and put on a record, Lawrence Welk or something like that, and and so I just remember falling asleep to like walking in, just peeking at him, and then going back into the bedroom that I would spend the night at, and just falling asleep to Lawrence Welk or something. But also my dad, he would listen to Pink Floyd and Journey, and oh gosh, what else did he listen to? I have some very vivid memories of watching Pink Floyd The Wall. Loving.
At what age?
We Don't Need No Education.
Oh yeah.
It was so disturbing. I cannot believe my parents.
How old were you?
I had to have been 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
And it's horrifying to me having a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old in the house and thinking, and my sister was 2 at the time, and both of us just sitting on the couch just watching Pink Floyd The Wall with my dad, and this memory of this sink scene with this guy just bleeding to death. I don't even know that. I'm just so scarred. Yeah. I don't remember.
See, the first time I watched it, we went to this video store and I rented it on VHS, and I've been dying to see it because I thought it was Pink. I just thought it was Pink Floyd live, or like a movie about Pink Floyd, a documentary or something.
But it's just this.
And I was like, what the heck is this? This is not. And I was so freaking confused. And I was so disturbed, I turned it off and I was like, I think I'm done with Pink Floyd. Like, this is weird.
It's crazy because sometimes I think.
And I was 12.
What's on TV nowadays is so disturbing. But then I think, about what I saw as a kid. Yeah. I don't know. It was pretty messed up back then too. And not to mention all the PG movies. Graphic nudity. Just and graphic everything. Yeah. And it's just PG. All the movies in the 80s, don't watch them if they're PG. They're not with your kids.
PG. You have no idea what's in them. Yeah.
Anyways, that's a tangent.
Like R was the equivalent of like XXX or something, I guess. But
who knows?
I don't know. Anyways, I don't know if there was a PG-13 at that point. I guess at some point they developed a PG-13.
Yeah,
anyways.
I guess it probably just went G, PG, and R or something. Who knows?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Who knows?
Don't quote us on any of that.
Fact check. But anyway, but yeah, we have a fun time doing it. And Emily, I'm looking for, I don't know where the pictures are, but I do have pictures of her looking for records when she was pregnant. And so she's always kind of helped me look for records and
got pretty good at it.
Yeah, pretty good at when sometimes if she's at a thrift store or something and I'm not there, she can pick stuff up without having to call me. She knows what she's doing. It takes both of us to do it because although I do a lot of the digging and finding and pop-up selling and stuff like that, she's a good support system and she's done lots of things to give me ideas and help me design T-shirts and stickers and so she's
like being the behind the scenes.
Yes, she's done a lot. Thank y'all for tuning in. This has been the Emily and Dylan
Day Smith
Entertainment Hour. Hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and until next time, have your pet spayed or neutered.
Yeah. Also, Noble Records out.
Noble Records out. Drop the mic.
It is 2 a.m. Mama's got to sleep.